Welcome to Bridal Owner Success Stories. I'm your host, Mindy Linscomb, founder of Bridal Owner Success School, also known as BOSS. Each episode of this podcast, we will dive deep into hearing the stories of successful bridal shop owners, uncovering their biggest challenges and their valuable life lessons. I can't wait for you to get to know them as well. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Boss Podcast, where we are hearing all these amazing things for bridal shop owners, and it stands for Bridal Shop Owners Success Stories. And I will just tell you that today we have a special guest. It's not necessarily a bridal shop owner, but she is a business owner who works very closely to bridal shop owners. So I want to welcome today Nadine Bozeman. Hello, Nadine. Thank you for being here today.
Yay, thank you for inviting me. I feel so honored to be part of the Bridal Owner Club. This is very exciting for me.
Yes, awesome. And Nadine is joining us from Olympia, Washington, where she is a well-known bridal seamstress. But since those days, which I would love to hear when that started, she has kind of launched even bigger dreams, bigger ideas, and she has another company that comes alongside bridal seamstresses all around the world. So Nadine, maybe you can tell us how you got into this crazy business and how long ago you started doing bridal seamstress work.
Yes, I love this question because I love hearing how people get into the world of bridal, because I feel like so many times it's kind of not our first choice. You know what I mean? Like, as much as I loved weddings growing up, I should have had a clue early on that like I would end up in the wedding world. You know, I always make the joke that like I loved the movie The Wedding Planner and I had it memorized, you know, in middle school, obviously. So that should have been an inkling that like I was meant to be here. But I actually started out as a middle school choir teacher. That was my first job out of college. That's what I went to school for. And I was a middle school choir teacher for 9 years and I loved it, you know, for what it was. But I will say, like, really shortly into the career, I realized this is not like a forever thing. I was looking at retired teachers, like finishing up their final years. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it that long. You know, like I love being with the kids and I love the music, but you know, there's definitely some cons in the teaching community. So I started building like an exit strategy kind of early on in my teaching career. And I started making like custom quilts, and I would make these cute little, like, you know, kitschy things to sell at local markets. Like I knew I wanted to do something with sewing, but I didn't know what it was going to be. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law in Minnesota, she was a bridal seamstress when I first met her. Now she's, you know, retired that part of her life. But she had told me, if you want to make money sewing, you should do alterations because everybody needs alterations. So that was kind of the first step. So I opened up my home, our little duplex at the time. I opened up the duplex for general alterations.
How old were you?
Let me see. I think I was like 24. Yeah,
okay.
23, 24. Yeah, so I've been teaching for a few years.
At the same time, you did this at the same time as you were teaching?
Oh, yeah. So it was like after school, I'd come home, bust out, like people would bring like garbage bags full of random clothes to fix. But it was a great learning experience for me because I loved taking things apart and putting it back together. And it was like a puzzle for me, you know? So my coworkers would bring me clothes and neighbors and whatever. And I did that for about a year. And I was like, this is actually really boring. My mother-in-law said this would be fun. But then I got a wedding dress. And that's when everything changed. So my first summer of bridal gowns, I actually had 3 dresses my first bridal season. And that was a lot. Like that was scary to have 3 bridal gowns in one summer. And it just so happened like I had 3 coworkers that were getting married around the same time and they trusted me. I'm so grateful for them. And I FaceTimed my mother-in-law, you know, she walked me through it because it was the same principles generally of sewing, but obviously a lot more at stake. But what I loved about the bridal sewing was I got to see these women like 3 or 4 times. We had multiple appointments. I was hearing their stories. Like I heard how they met their, you know, their fiancés. Okay, what did you love about the dress? And that's when I realized like, I love weddings. Why can't I do this only? You know, I love this relationship with the bride. I loved working with the wedding dresses. Obviously, it was a lot cuter than jeans or whatever. So quickly after that, I realized I just want to be a bridal-only seamstress. And at the time, there was nothing like that in my area. Like now I think there are 3 other bridal seamstresses in the Olympia area who do bridal only. But at the time, like, I was the only one. So to me, I'm like, wow, light bulb moment. I'm discovering something amazing to be bridal only. So then I hired a coach. I worked with a mindset and a business coach, and I got a business plan together, and I started Sweet Francis Sewing Co. for bridal only. And at the time I was still doing it out of my home after school hours, so my fittings would be after school, and then I'd be sewing till like, 10 o'clock at night before whatever, before and after school. And then within a couple years of doing bridal only, I was able to leave the classroom. So and then after I left the classroom, once you put yourself 100% into something, it's going to grow. So I was still at the time working out of my home. And then my husband's like, you got too many dresses up in here. We got to get you out of the house. And that's where I found this shop. It was like literally we had this conversation about finding a professional space. And then 2 weeks later, the for lease sign was in the window here. So I've been in this building for 4.5 years now. And it has just, I think, yes, like leaving my job and going 100% into this was a big step. And then moving into the professional space was also the next progressive big step. And that's what kind of told the community, like, okay, I'm here, I'm open, let's do this. And it became like a 6-figure business within a year and a half of moving into the professional space. So things just happened so quickly. And I'm sure listeners who are like also business owners, they're like, yeah, once you say okay, it's like the floodgates kind of open and things start moving along. So yeah, that's kind of how I came into
you're really serious and you're passionate about this.
Yeah, exactly. So then
So
once
did you go ahead. You go ahead. Once
yeah, once I don't even remember what I was going to say. So we have editing, right?
well,
So we can edit out these things.
Started to build a team. So then you started to build a team, and I'm guessing like
No, so I don't have a team. I'm the only seamstress here. I have a team for like more of like the scheduling side of things, the podcast. I have a podcast manager because after Sweet Francis Sewing Co. became a success, I was like, there have to be other women out there who are on the same boat as me who want to start this business. They're overwhelmed by like the business side of it. Like they have the sewing skills, but it's like, how do you build a business? And I had spent money on like coaching and, a business coach, mindset coaching. I read all the books and like watched all the YouTube videos. And so I wanted to help women kind of skip that frustration and also like the loneliness of starting this business from the ground up. So I started a podcast first, Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress. And what's funny is that was actually originally for brides. Like, here's what to think about for your alterations process or whatever. But what started happening, and this was in end of 2020. So there weren't many of us on the Instagram as far as bridal seamstresses were concerned. Like I knew like 3. And then they kind of started coming out of the woodwork like, oh my gosh, I found your podcast. I have the same job. I don't know anybody, under 50 who's a bridal seamstress. Like, it's so cool to connect with you. So then it became like, this could be a thing. How can I help these women who are in the same boat, feeling frustrated, kind of where I was, 6 years ago, and how can I help them? So that became the first step, was changing the podcast to serve bridal seamstresses only. And then the next step, the natural progression, was to start a business community for bridal seamstresses. So that's allowed me to kind of step back a little bit from the bridal sewing portion. But of course, I'm still going to have my shop. I want to have my own experience because I always want to be relatable to my community. But that's kind of how I guess my workload has shifted a little bit. Yeah.
I was going to say, Nadine, we have so much in common. From being a teacher, right? I was a teacher.
That's right.
I have my master's in education. I was a teacher for a long time, and then had the dream of having a bridal store. So I opened it. My husband was so awesome to say, okay, we were both teachers. We went down to one teacher's salary.
Oh, ouch.
Literally, we were below poverty line. But I did everything I could. Like I would babysit, I would teach piano lessons. I would do anything I could on the side while I was starting the
Mm-hmm.
bridal shop to help with money as we began. Um, but then that teacher heart, I don't think it goes away. And
I
so,
think so
just
too.
like you were
Yeah.
saying, I feel, I was like, I want to create a business community, just like you said, but for bridal shop owners, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think there are enough resources for owners specifically in that trade. And you're the same,
Oh
doing the
yeah.
podcast with your
Yeah.
owners, doing education and retreats and all of it. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
really cool because I think, you know, to get coaching is one thing. And I got a lot of coaching too. But how cool if you can get coaching specific, like dialed into your industry from
Mm-hmm.
one of us, which we are practitioner coaches, meaning we're still in the business while we're coaching it. And that is
Mm-hmm.
super unique as a business coach to have one specific to your industry, but also still open. I'm sitting in my shop right now, just as you are. And it's
Same.
like we're open
I
for
have a bride
business.
coming in later. Yeah.
So I'm just saying it's really, really cool when people can find their community. So
Yeah.
that's I'm like I haven't hung out with you until this show, but I feel so connected to you based on based on our passions and our desire to serve our
Yeah.
people.
And
So
I think
uh,
so. What grade did you teach?
I taught basically everything except for junior high. I taught elementary, high
Oh.
school, adults at a junior college.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, you missed out because middle school is a treat once you get over, the odors and the scent of the seventh grade vibe. But I found too that like teaching middle schoolers and teaching 40-year-old women, there's really not much of a difference. You know what I mean? Like, because we all have the same need to feel, we want to feel seen, we want to feel understood, we want that compassion piece, we want to be able to feel vulnerable. And I think that so many things that I learned, and middle schoolers, I think high schoolers too, they're pretty cutthroat. They
Yeah.
can see right through you if you are faking it or making stuff up on the fly. And it's like, it's the same. You have to show up in authenticity. You have to be willing to be honest about the wins and the losses. And that's how you truly connect with your students. And it's the same. It's just cooler now because now my students are like my friends because they're my age.
Yeah.
So it's even better.
I've become very good friends with my students. Okay, I want to dig into the business a little bit because everybody listening to this is a bridal shop owner, and
Hmm.
I'd love to hear, if you could talk about some of the pros and cons of having in-house alterations versus referring a list of seamstresses. Could you talk about some of the pros
Oh,
and cons to those?
yeah. Okay, so let's start with having in-house seamstresses. I think, and I know of women who have worked as in-house seamstresses, and I work with my business or my membership serves women in particular who want to be independent seamstresses working on their own. But I also have coached women who are seamstresses working with a shop as an in-house seamstress. So I have worked with both and I see the pros and cons of both. So the pros of being an in-house seamstress, you have a workspace available, you have a fitting space available, you have the work available. So you're not having to market yourself. You're able to be super familiar with the designers that are brought in for that particular store. So you're not going to be caught off guard. Like sometimes with independent seamstresses, it's like, I have like 3 top referring stores, so I can predict the styles. And now I've gotten to the point where I only take dresses from certain stores. But I remember the days of like, who is this designer? Like, what is this? And you're kind of having to open up this new puzzle because designers create dresses differently, right? With different seam allowances and all these things. So the pro of being an in-house seamstress is you know exactly what you're working with, what designers you're working with, what to expect. And there's that predictability of the work, which for independent seamstresses, it does take a while to get to that point where you can have like that predictability of your workload and your payment, all that stuff. The cons, I think, of in-house seamstresses, you don't have control of your own schedule as much, meaning, yes, you might be working like 9 to 5, but you're not necessarily controlling how many clients you have to serve per week. And it's really difficult to balance your needs, like literally your physical needs as a seamstress with the demand of a shop. And like, it's always going to, I feel like there's always going to be that high demand. So what I've heard is there's kind of that constant struggle of like, there's physically only so much I can do, but the bridal shop really needs these dresses cranked out. So there's kind of like that, where's the balance, and also so that it makes sense financially for the shop owner. They can't afford like to have like 7, 8 seamstresses to calmly take care of dresses. So I think there's always going to be that like rush feel,
Yeah.
the pros
Well,
and
and
cons
another
of, oh, go
pro,
ahead.
well, I was going to say another pro for the seamstresses, usually she doesn't have to worry about scheduling and taking the phone call, and the bride calls 3 different times for appointment. And so
Right.
I mean, when we did have in-house seamstress work, we took all of those scheduling calls. We did all the reminder calls for that seamstress leading up
Mm-hmm.
just to, hey, don't forget to bring your shoes and we'll see you tomorrow, all of that. We
Right.
also supplied, as a bridal shop, we supplied all of her machines, her area she worked in. We paid rent on that. We supplied
Mm-hmm.
all of the sewing supplies as well, like the
Yeah.
bra cups, the thread. I mean, we provided all of that. So it was really just her skill that she brought into the table. And that was so necessary, right? But I'm
Right.
just saying, some people don't want to do the infrastructure of running a business and they just want
Oh,
to
right.
sew. And
Mm-hmm.
so it
And
might be,
in addition, the confrontational conversations, if there's some kind of miscommunication, I'm assuming that you, as the bridal shop owner, you're the one handling that part. You know what I'm saying?
correct.
As opposed to
Yes,
the seamstress having to like confront or feel attacked. It's like they do have that protection, which I know is a struggle for a lot of women who are trying to work independently. That's really intimidating.
right.
Yes.
Yes, it can be intimidating, but you carry the load, heavy load, I feel like, of communicating expectations at the onset
Mm-hmm.
of an alteration, and then also communicating disappointment, like what we can do or can't do based on, this bride's body or whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
that is never fun and very tricky. And so I would say, by being in-house, you kind of let the operations and the business side of it fall on someone else's plate, and like you said, you just come in and sew. So it
Right.
might be the right thing for some people, but you make less
Totally.
money. So
Exactly.
running a successful bridal shop can be challenging, but with the right support, it can also be incredibly rewarding. Hi, I'm Mindy Linscomb, founder of Bridal Owner Success School, aka BOSS. After 17 years in the bridal industry, I've developed proven strategies that drive both positivity and profitability in your business. Through BOSS, you'll receive insightful coaching, time-tested frameworks, and a community of bridal shop owners dedicated to helping each other succeed. Ready to boost your profitability and find more energy in your business? Visit bridalownersuccess.com and sign up for BOSS today.
And I think that's where I think it starts with a little thought like, okay, I'm getting paid hourly, and this is what I see. The women who come to me who have been in-house seamstresses and they've decided to work independently, and then they come to me because they're struggling with the things we just talked about, like basically the professionalism, right? It started with seeing what the ticket was for the bride and then seeing what they were taking home from that ticket. And then they were doing the math of like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm not paying rent. I'm not paying for a machine. I'm not paying for the supplies, but this is still my skill. So that's just giving a secret away. That's where it starts, right? Is like seeing the difference in what the bill is versus the seamstress's take home pay. And I honestly feel like that is the biggest draw for seamstresses to become independent, is they know like, okay, this can be a 6-figure career or for me, like, but it comes with having to learn all these skills as a professional and having a space to do it. Like, yes, I started out of my home, but I didn't want to stay in my home forever, and I pay rent here. When I moved into my professional space, my prices went up a little bit because I had now more of an overhead to cover. There's also the benefit of having your own schedule. So I control what dresses I take in, right? I see photos before brides come to me. If there's a style I don't want to work with, I'm like, I don't want to do that. If there's a designer I don't want to work with, I don't want to do that. There's just more control. And for some people like me, I love the control. I really love control, like to a fault, right? But then there's others who are like, if that is intimidating or overwhelming, running a business isn't easy. For some, I mean, it never, I guess, feels easy, quote unquote, to me, but it has gotten so much easier and I enjoy it so much, but it's not for everybody. So I think you do have to know, like, with the skills that you have and also the personality that you have, like, make the choice that's best for who you are. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. So if there is kind of that struggle of like, okay, well, I just would like higher pay, that just might be a conversation with your boss, you know, and that might solve that. Like, I'd like to kind of negotiate my pay and I'd like to negotiate my hours. That could be an easy way to solve frustrations with your in-house seamstress without them feeling like they have to like reinvent the wheel and leave and start over and be independent and be scared.
Yeah, and what would you say, like, is the seamstress preferring, in what you've experienced, is the seamstress preferring doing a split if they're an in-house seamstress, or would they rather like an hourly wage? What do you feel like is more their preference?
A split, some kind of split. Because hourly wage, you could, I think that stings a little more because it's like the skill to complete this task is so much more perfected and honed in as these other skills that you're being paid the same amount for. So at least giving them a little more freedom or reward, maybe that's a better way of saying it, more reward for the work. So they're getting a percentage of this ticket, the alterations ticket, and then have that conversation of like, okay, this portion of the ticket is going to cover XYZ, all these things that the shop is covering for you, and have a clear explanation of that and have a, you know, have a conversation. And yeah, that I think would just translate better of having the cut of the check or the cut of the bill as opposed to an hourly rate.
Okay, and then
Mm-hmm.
here's another question I have for you. If you're doing an outside seamstress list, I'm curious, for bridal shop owners, what would be something you would recommend we, you know, investigate or ask to make sure it's a good partner for us
Mm-hmm.
to refer?
Oh, yes.
That's part one. And then part two is, um, what kind of arrangement should we make if they're on our list?
Okay. I want to tread lightly here because I feel like around the country there are different expectations. So where I live in Washington State, I have 2 or 3 stores who I serve so many of their brides, and I love the owners. Like we were talking about Courtney Foreman before recording. Like, love her. We
She's
have a great
amazing.
relationship, and I think so from my experience, I don't pay anything to be on their referral list. Because it's an extension of the experience that we're trying to provide for the bride. Like, it's a bridal journey. There's no connection between, you know, these other shops and what I do besides that common thread of the relationship. So, I don't pay a referral fee. There's no, I know there's another phrase for that, but I can't, it's not coming to me.
Like,
But I know around the
yeah, no,
country,
I mean,
it's
it's
like, what? I tip of my tongue. Okay. Well, it will come to me. I'll blurt it out. But I know, like, around the country, some of my girlfriends are like, wait, you don't have like a referral fee that you have to pay? Like, it's surprising to them. So I think kind of whatever like the tradition is in your area, that might be what you're going off of. But I would say the work that I do is completely different from what retailers do in selling a dress. You sell a dress, the dress is picked up, the contract is signed. That is a different transaction. It's a different experience for the bride than when she moves into the next vendor of the seamstress. Like, I really don't think there should be any there shouldn't be any like money involved with that exchange, right? However, if
And
you
see,
have
Nadine, what I've done is I'm so with you. I want it to be completely separate businesses, and you can use whoever you want. You don't even have
Mhm,
to use my list if you don't want to, but I'm not connected to
exactly.
the alteration component. But we don't, yeah, we don't make any money from referring someone. We don't charge anyone for referring someone. But as a friendly gesture. Sometimes what my seamstress does as a thank you present is, I was mentioning this to you earlier, is that she'll come in and just repair some of my zippers
Yes.
or
Yes.
some of
Yeah,
my
yeah.
broken dresses. And it's just kind of a like, it's kind of like a thank you present for sending her work,
Totally.
but it's
Yes.
I never exchanged money. I'm saying these are the best people in the business in my town. Here's who we
Mm-hmm.
trust with our dresses. You can use them or not. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
benefiting from you using them. Like, that is totally up
Right.
to you. But it's just like a friend to friend thing that she'll
I
do for
totally
me.
think
It's just,
so. And yeah, and I think like as a seamstress, I want to honor, like, I feel like, wow, you're trusting me with your brides. Thank you. Like, I never want to take that for granted. And so, like I was saying, like, I feel like seamstresses should be the ones to like send the Starbucks cards or like send flowers or just express, like, I never want it to be taken for granted, like the trust that they've given me. And I do the same thing. Like, I have a couple of Courtney's dresses right now that I'm just fixing, like little things. And it's just an understood. And what's funny is she's always offered to pay me, but it's like, no, like, this is, it's more than a fair exchange. And I think that most people would, well, I shouldn't say, I don't know how most people would feel, but that's how I feel. And I think it's a fair expectation to have. And then another shop that's a little bit farther away, like, I'll go up and do trainings with them and just be a presence there, be a resource for their stylists. And that relationship, again, what we were talking about before recording, is so key. But yeah, I think there shouldn't be any like money exchanged or expectation of, a referral fee. But when you have
what would you
a
say is the,
relationship,
oh, sorry, if you have a relationship, I just
good.
wanted you to make sure you teach us how do we start that relationship and find the right seamstress for our list.
Oh, I'm so glad you circled back to this, because you said this at the beginning of the conversation. I was like, ooh, see, I'm getting all excited. Okay, so I I feel very strongly, and I don't want to, like, ruffle any feathers on the seamstress side of things, but if you are going to put somebody's name on your list, like, okay, you just provided this beautiful experience for your brides, like, she said yes to the dress, like, it was this magical moment, everything's great, and then you have this list of professionals that you are saying essentially, like, you're going to get a very similar experience here. Like, you're going to feel special. It's going to be clean. The work is going to be good. Like, these are partners that we trust. So I don't have, like, when I work with brides, I don't have, the next step for them, because I'm kind of the last step, right? Steaming and cleaning and preservation's all here too. But I do have some preferred vendors like caterers and florists and, oh, especially like hair and makeup artists, because that sometimes is the next thing that they book down the line. And the people that I refer to, like, I know them, I know what their space looks like, I know what their space smells like, I know what kind of experience the bride is going to get, and I wouldn't recommend them if I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? So I do think it's there is that responsibility involved for the shop owner. And I don't think that you should feel weird to have a little interview with who you are referring out to, because, and this is what I encourage my members to do, is when they introduce themselves to shops that they want to work with, have a portfolio of the work that they've done, have photos, have some testimonials that they're willing to share, have references, which is weird because I know it's not a job interview, but it's totally normal. Like, have a few clients that you've worked with and you have a great experience, that they would just speak for you from a bride's perspective, what the experience was like. Some of my members, they've actually had the shop owners come to their spaces, which I'm like, whoa. But that's actually kind of a really good idea, because then who you're sending who you're sending your clients to. And when you get those phone calls out of the blue, it's like, whether they're complaints or praises or whatever, like, you know what you're getting yourself into. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I would want to
And
see work that they've accomplished. Yeah, keep going.
oh no, go ahead. You go ahead with your list.
Yeah, I'd want to see like work that they have done, references maybe from some other brides, have a good idea of what their space is, even if you don't, physically go there. And it's okay to ask. It's totally fine to ask those questions. I mean, in a friendly way. You don't want to like interrogate them. Like, they're nervous to go into your shop, you know what I mean, and promote themselves. But I think it's also really fair to ask the questions, because it's an important thing for you to send your
Well, and
client
it's your
along the way.
reputation too, right? It's your reputation
Yes.
too. So,
Mm-hmm.
I will add to this conversation by just saying a few things I've also mentioned to seamstresses over the years that I expect if they're going to be on my list.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be like, whoa. But I say, if there is ever a difficult customer that came from our company that possibly things did not go well, we would love for you to let us know be- before the bride calls us. Like, let us know that, like, give us a call and say, hey, I just had a fitting with so and so and it didn't go so well and mom's upset, whatever it might be, because I
Mm-hmm.
want a heads up on that before I get a call from the bride. So, when she left my store, she was happy. So now I'm like, what happened between now and then? I want an update. The other thing I asked for is for them to never throw our store under the bus, because if
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to refer
Mm-hmm.
you, one of my biggest pet peeves with seamstresses is when they say something to the effect of, oh, well, that store shouldn't have sold you that, or they got you the wrong size, or something like that. Because the reality is, in our store, anyways, our brides choose their own size.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's really a different size, it's probably because they got it on a sample sale at 70% off and they don't tell the seamstress that part. And
Yep.
then the seamstress thinks that we gave them a really bad order size. And so then
Yes.
they make us sound bad by saying, oh, that shop, they should have not
They don't know how
done
to
that. And
measure.
so I tell them, I said, listen, if we're going to be partners here and you're going to get a referral list spot on my paper, if you think we did something wrong, don't tell the bride that. Give us a call.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Call
Yep.
us and say, hey, this dress seems off, or whatever it might be. And then I'll be able to tell you, yeah, it is 2 sizes too big because she got it for $500 at a sample sale. So we told her there would be a lot of alteration. That was not a surprise. And then the seamstress is like, oh, got it. And so I
Right.
appreciate relationships where it's really good communication instead of throwing us under the bus. And I think every bridal store on here would say that is one of the hardest things for us, is when the seamstress either doesn't want to do the work, because sometimes that's it, or thinks
Yep.
it's going to be too much time, not enough money, or does think that we did something wrong. And then they just throw the shop under the bus when the shop referred
Yes.
them.
Yes. Okay. I literally, my neck hurts because I was like nodding so much because that is so, I feel like, why isn't that a thing? It just feels like it would be second nature. Like, I have the numbers of the shop owners, like, on my phone. I'm sending the voice memos, like, OMG, so and so just came in here, like, and it's like fun story time. But it is, I know that that is not the case with every bridal shop and seamstress relationship. And I can't tell you, I know this sounds so cheesy to be like, I'm so passionate but I'm very passionate about healing this relationship, because I think there's been just inadvertently damage done, so much done in the past. There's been broken trust, like scary stories exchanged. And so now it's like this us versus them mentality, instead of like, we're all on the same team. We want the same thing for our bride. And I think too, if you have this relationship to begin with, like, I know the way that my shops work. They know how I work. I know they trust me and they like me, and I like them and I trust them. And because we have that trust, when these yahoos come in here with stories, I'm like, I know you're not telling the truth. And I'm able to filter it out that way. And then, call the shop owner right away and be like, oh my gosh, guess what happened just now? Because I'm not sitting here feeling like self-conscious and insecure in myself. You know what I mean? Like, I know that the
Yeah.
trust is
Well, and
there.
I'm sad because I will tell you, there's at least two seamstresses, to my knowledge, in my 17 years of doing this, that could have had a ton of business from us, a ton of business. But because so first time when they told the bride it was our fault, but we shouldn't have done something, and the bride didn't tell the full story, and they just rode that narrative that we did something wrong. I called the seamstress and I said, hey, this isn't cool. I really hope it doesn't happen again. And it happened again to two
No,
different seamstresses. And
even
I
though they
had
were
to,
caught.
yeah, Nadine, I mean, I've been doing it 17 years, so it's a long time. But my point is, the sad part is if people take that route, they will cut off a supply of customer base that is good. So I'm always like, don't, even if you think that shop should have ordered a different size, and even if you don't think whatever they did was right, tell the shop, don't tell the bride. Because what you're doing is
100%.
you're undermining the credibility of the shop that this girl bought a dress from. And it's also your referral pipeline. And so I'm
Yes.
sad because I think these two shops could have had a ton of business over the years. And we have just stayed the course to only work with people that we can both mutually speak highly of each other in business. And if there's an issue, we talk behind the closed doors, not in front of the bride. And we say, hey, how can we work this out? And so, our staff has gotten better at understanding how to explain alterations over the years because of the feedback. And then she's gotten better. Our seamstresses have gotten better at explaining how the shop works and how you choose your size 6 months ago. And, your body can change and that's not their fault. And so things like that. And I think, just being committed to good communication, because it is a partnership. If you throw each other under the bus, it's not going to go very far.
Totally. And it feels good. Like, it just feels better to have, I don't know, I feel like, okay, they have my back, I have their back, and it's just easier to like live your life that way. I don't know. It just kind of seems like, hey, it's easier too. Like the clients are going to come and go, right? My customers, they're in and out in 3 months, but it's like, this is the long-term relationship. And yeah, there have been times where I'm like, wait, they said what? But what I also know, and what you know, is how emotional and excited these brides are in appointments. And they may hear something that is like literally completely opposite of what was actually said in the appointment. And so I'm like, they did not say that to you, because also I know the spiel that I say the same spiel every fitting, and I know shop owners have the same one that they give to every client. It's like, they're not going to come up with this like one random lie that like they haven't been saying for years. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Like, for example, and this is that I know we've been talking for a little bit, but I'm just saying, like, one of the things that you're making me think of is when we don't price quote for our seamstresses, like, it's a no-no to price quote.
Right. That's
and
smart.
So but it's so funny because they will go to a seamstress and they'll say, oh, the shop said it was going to be $200. No, we know it's against, like, we train our team never to say. So like, our seamstresses know that is not true, actually, that we didn't quote a price for alterations, because we can't be the professional in that setting to say how much alterations are. You are the only person that can say how much that's going to be. Now, you tell them that it's based on the amount of work getting done, and that alterations are totally normal, and you will need something done in every dress when it comes in, because every body is different. But what you pay for alterations will depend on the amount of work and what kind of work and the skill set of the seamstress.
100%. Yeah. Perfect answer. I could tell you rehearsed it. That's a good one.
We've been on this a little bit. Okay. Well, Nadine, I want to ask you a question. If people want to follow you on Instagram or check out your website, where can they do that?
Yes, Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress. So Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress, Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress podcast.com. So that's where the podcast lives. And that's if you have seamstresses that you refer out to and they could use mentorship, a really positive business community they'd want to be part of, send them over there. Secrets of Bridal Seamstress on Instagram. And I'm sharing, tips for seamstresses and all that there. So find me there. And you can also DM me. If you've been listening to this, you have questions and you're like, oh, just shoot me a message and I'll get back to you.
I love
the voice memo. I honestly
want to say that, like, I don't think it should just be for bridal seamstresses to follow you. I think bridal shop owners should follow you, just so that we're more equipped to answer the questions when it comes to brides and alterations. So this has been a super amazing episode. I feel like I could talk to you all day long, Nadine. You are so fun. And I'm so glad that we're friends. And I so want to cheer you on with all you're doing. And any seamstress I meet, I will definitely send them to your program, because I think you're teaching some great things to them. So I'm glad you could be here today. Thank you guys for joining us on the latest episode of Boss. We'll talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Bridal Owner Success Stories. I hope you found some inspiration and encouragement for your own career in the bridal industry. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. We are in this together.